Look at him. A billionaire, yet trapped in that chair like a broken toy. The words cut sharper than knives. Everyone at the lavish party froze. Glasses of champagne halted midair. Whispers rippled across the ballroom, and all eyes turned toward the source of the cruel laughter, Vanessa, the beautiful wife of Richard Adewale, one of the richest men in Lagos. Richard sat in his sleek black wheelchair, his eyes calm but pained, his strong hands resting on the golden rims. His tailored suit fit him perfectly. His neatly trimmed beard framed a face that once commanded boardrooms and nations. But tonight, his own wife had turned him into an object of ridicule. Vanessa, tall, stunning, with flawless caramel skin, a glittering diamond necklace, and a red dress that hugged her curves, strutted in front of the guests like a queen on a stage. She had everything: a billionaire husband, luxury cars, mansions, endless designer clothes. Yet her eyes no longer held love, only arrogance. "Richard," she shouted across the ballroom, "how long will you hide behind that chair? You call yourself a man, but you can't even dance with your wife. What use is all your money if you can't give me what I need?" Gasps filled the room. Some guests lowered their eyes in shame. Others whispered eagerly, feeding off the scandal. Richard's business partners shifted uncomfortably, embarrassed for him, but none dared to speak. Richard's jaw clenched. He could buy and sell every soul in that room. Yet tonight, he was powerless against the one person he trusted the most, his wife. Vanessa wasn't done. She snatched the microphone from the band singer and raised her voice louder, her words dripping with venom. "Let the world know. I am married to a cripple, the great billionaire Richard Adewale, who owns half the oil rigs in West Africa. Can't even walk into his own bedroom without me pushing him. Tell me, ladies, what kind of man is that?" Laughter erupted from a few bold guests. Phones came out. Some recorded secretly. Richard's empire had survived economic crashes, political storms, and envious rivals. But this public humiliation, was breaking him in ways no business loss ever could. Vanessa smirked and threw the microphone back. "I need a real man, Richard, not a broken one." The words echoed like thunder, and then she walked off, leaving Richard frozen in silence. That night, the mansion felt colder than ever. Richard sat alone in his study, surrounded by walls of trophies, framed awards, and newspaper clippings praising him as a genius billionaire, the oil king, Africa's titan of business. Yet in his heart, those titles meant nothing. He looked at a photo of himself from 5 years ago, standing tall, shaking hands with presidents, exuding power. Then he looked down at his lifeless legs, trapped forever after a private jet crash that had left him paralyzed from the waist down. That accident had stolen his ability to walk, but what hurt more was how Vanessa had changed after it. At first, she pretended to care, holding his hand at the hospital, whispering fake promises of loyalty. But as months passed, her eyes wandered. She grew colder. She craved attention from other men, younger, stronger, reckless men who could give her what she believed Richard could not. Richard had ignored the signs, her late-night outings, her constant phone calls and secrecy, her growing disrespect. He thought love could heal her greed. He was wrong. Now, her words echoed in his mind. "What use is your money if you can't give me what I need?" But Vanessa had underestimated one thing. Richard might have lost his legs, but he had not lost his mind. He was still the man who built an empire from dust. He was still the billionaire whose strategies left rivals bankrupt. And tonight, as tears rolled down his face, he made a silent vow. "Vanessa will regret this humiliation. I will rise again. And when I do, the whole world will see who is truly crippled." The storm had begun. Vanessa's cruel words at the party spread like wildfire. Within hours, gossip blogs exploded. Billionaire Richard humiliated by wife in public. Vanessa Adewale calls husband a cripple before guests. The internet feasted on it. Memes were made. Competitors whispered. Richard's image took a hit. But strangely, he remained silent. He gave no interviews, made no statements, and carried on as though nothing had happened. Vanessa, on the other hand, relished the spotlight. For her, the humiliation wasn't enough. She wanted freedom, power, and pleasure. Late at night, while Richard stayed in his study going over contracts, Vanessa slipped out of the mansion in luxury cars he had bought for her. She dressed in short, glittering gowns, her silky black hair bouncing over her shoulders, her flawless caramel skin glowing under the city lights. She frequented clubs, laughing with younger men, showered in attention she craved. One of them was Damien, a muscular personal trainer she had met at the gym. Tall, dark-skinned, with tattoos across his arms. He was the opposite of Richard. He had nothing, no money, no class, but he had the one thing Vanessa now desired, raw physicality. She met him in hotels, sometimes even sneaking him into the mansion when Richard was away on business. To her, it was a thrill, living as the billionaire's wife by day, sneaking around with reckless lovers by night. But Damien wasn't the only one. There were others. Bartenders, models, even one of Richard's junior employees. Vanessa played with fire, laughing behind her husband's back. To her, Richard was weak, helpless, blind. But Richard saw everything. One evening, while Vanessa was getting dressed to leave again, Richard wheeled into the room quietly. She was standing in front of the mirror in a sparkling silver dress, adjusting her lipstick. Going out again? Richard asked softly. Vanessa froze for a moment, then smirked. Yes. What do you care? You can't join me anyway. Richard's face showed no anger, no jealousy, just calm. Vanessa, one day, you will regret everything you're doing. She laughed cruelly. Regret? I'm the only one living, Richard. You sit in that chair day and night while I taste life. You think your money keeps me happy? I need a man, not a cripple with a fortune. Her words stabbed him, but he didn't flinch. Instead, he looked her in the eye and said slowly, The walls of this house have ears, Vanessa. Remember that. Then he wheeled away, leaving her unsettled. For the first time, Vanessa felt a strange chill, but she brushed it off and went out anyway. Behind the scenes, Richard had already begun gathering proof. His private investigator, a loyal ex-police officer named Chief Okoro, had been tailing Vanessa for weeks. Photos, videos, phone recordings, bank transfers to lovers. Every secret was documented. Richard studied them late into the night, his sharp business mind working faster than ever. In the corporate world, information was the strongest weapon, and now, in his personal life, it would become his sword. Weeks later, Vanessa's arrogance reached new heights. She threw another grand party at their mansion, inviting Lego socialites, influencers, and celebrities. Richard sat silently in his chair, watching as Vanessa flirted openly with Damien, pretending he was just her trainer. But Richard said nothing. Instead, when it was his turn to make a toast, he raised his glass with a smile. To my beloved wife, Vanessa, he said smoothly, a woman who never fails to surprise me. Everyone clapped. Vanessa smirked, thinking she had won. But Richard's calm was more dangerous than anger. The cracks began to show. One morning, Vanessa woke up to find her luxury credit cards blocked. Her shopping sprees were cut off. The staff in the mansion, who once obeyed her, now answered only to Richard. Damien grew impatient with her, asking for money she could no longer easily access. Vanessa, what's going on? Damien snapped one night in the hotel. I thought you said you're married to a billionaire. Where's the cash? Where's the gifts? Vanessa frowned. He's just trying to punish me. Don't worry, I'll fix it. But things only worsened. Richard had quietly shifted assets, frozen accounts, and placed her on a strict allowance. She no longer had the same power in the house. Worse still, rumors of her affairs began leaking. Anonymous blogs publishing photos of her entering hotels late at night, whisper campaigns in the social circles she loved. Vanessa Adewale, cheating on her billionaire husband? Is this the end of Lego's power couple? Vanessa panicked. She confronted Richard in his study one night, her voice sharp with rage. You did this, didn't you? You're trying to destroy me. Richard turned his wheelchair to face her, his eyes cold but calm. Destroy you? Vanessa, you destroyed yourself. I simply gave you the rope, and you chose to hang yourself with it. Her jaw dropped. Richard leaned forward. You think I am powerless because of these legs. But remember, I built an empire when I had nothing. Do you really think I wouldn't protect myself from a snake in my own bed? Vanessa's face turned pale. For the first time, she realized the truth. Richard wasn't weak. He was patient, calculating, dangerous, and her games were about to end. The storm Vanessa thought she controlled had turned against her. For weeks, whispers of her affairs had spread like wildfire, and the elite Lego circles she once ruled with grace now laughed behind her back. But nothing compared to the night Richard chose to reveal his hand. It was the annual Adewale Foundation Gala, the biggest charity event of the year. The media, business leaders, celebrities, and government officials all gathered in a grand hall lit by golden chandeliers. Everyone expected a glamorous evening, red carpets, champagne laughter. Vanessa, desperate to salvage her image, dressed like a queen. A shimmering gold gown hugged her figure, her flawless caramel skin glowing under the lights. Diamonds glittered on her neck, gifts she had once flaunted from Richard. She forced a smile as cameras flashed, determined to remind the world that she was still the billionaire's wife. But Richard had orchestrated the night, with chilling precision. Seated in his wheelchair, his black tuxedo sharp and elegant, Richard looked every bit the powerful businessman. His calm demeanor masked the storm brewing inside him. The evening began with the usual speeches. Guests clapped. Waiters floated around with trays of champagne. Everything seemed perfect until Richard wheeled himself onto the stage. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice smooth, commanding. "Tonight is not just about charity. Tonight is about truth." A hush fell over the room. Vanessa, sitting at the front table, shifted uncomfortably. Richard's eyes scanned the crowd. "For months, my name and reputation have been dragged through the mud. Whispers, lies, humiliation. But as they say, truth always finds a way to the light." The large LED screens behind him flickered. Suddenly, images appeared, grainy photos of Vanessa entering hotels with Damien, videos of her laughing in nightclubs, clinging to younger men, bank statements showing transfers she secretly made to her lovers. Gasps erupted across the hall. Cameras flashed wildly. Socialites whispered. Journalists scrambled for footage. Vanessa's face turned ashen. She leaped from her chair. "Richard, stop this." But it was too late. The screen zoomed in on one final video. Vanessa in a hotel room, whispering to Damien. "He's useless to me. Just a cripple with money. Soon I'll take half of everything, and then he'll mean nothing." The room exploded in shock. Vanessa screamed. "This is fake. Lies. He set me up." But nobody believed her. Damien, sitting secretly in the audience under Richard's orders, stood up. He was surrounded instantly by Richard's security. "You used me, Vanessa," Damien growled, his voice echoing across the hall. "And now everyone knows." The betrayal cut deeper than a blade. Security escorted Damien out, but all eyes remained on Vanessa. She stumbled, tears smudging her perfect makeup. For the first time, the queen of Lego society was exposed as a fraud. Richard turned back to the crowd, his voice calm but sharp. "Marriage is built on trust. Betrayal is a poison. Tonight, you've all seen the poison I've endured, but no longer." Then he looked directly at Vanessa, his eyes like steel. "From this moment forward, Vanessa Adewale is no longer my wife. The divorce papers were signed yesterday, and thanks to our ironclad prenuptial agreement, she leaves with nothing." The room gasped again. Vanessa's legs buckled. "Nothing," she whispered, her voice trembling. Richard nodded. "Every car, every jewel, every property. You lose it all. Because while you were chasing cheap thrills, I was protecting what mattered. You thought my weakness was my legs, but it was your greed that crippled you." Applause erupted. Guests clapped, some cheering, others shaking their heads in disbelief. Vanessa screamed in rage, lunging toward Richard on stage. But security caught her, dragging her back as she thrashed and cried. "You can't do this to me," she shrieked. "I made you. I gave you life." Richard leaned forward in his chair, his voice icy. "No, Vanessa. You tried to destroy me, but I gave you the rope, and you hung yourself." The scandal spread like wildfire the next morning. Every headline screamed the story. "Billionaire's wicked wife exposed." "Vanessa Adewale loses everything after cheating scandal," Richard Adewale proves why he's still king of business. Vanessa's world crumbled. She was kicked out of the mansion with nothing but the clothes on her back. Friends abandoned her. Brands canceled her endorsements. Damien disappeared, leaving her alone in shame. Meanwhile, Richard's empire soared. His calm handling of betrayal earned him respect across business circles. Investors praised his resilience. Fans admired his strength. But behind the businessman, Richard remained human. In private, he allowed himself to grieve, not for Vanessa, but for the marriage he once believed in. Still, he rose above. Months later, at another gala, Richard appeared again, this time with a kind-hearted woman by his side. Amara, a lawyer who had once worked quietly for his foundation, stood with him. She was elegant, graceful, her beauty radiant but grounded. Unlike Vanessa, she didn't crave the spotlight. Instead, she held Richard's hand with quiet strength. When the cameras flashed, Richard smiled. For the first time in years, it was genuine. And though he would never forget the scars Vanessa left, he knew one thing for certain. The crippled billionaire was never truly crippled, only tested. And in the end, he won.